Good evening. I'm going to call the August 2nd, 2017 Amery City Council meeting to order. And before we do anything, I want to share with the public and those people who haven't heard that this morning Paul Schaefer and Paul Isaacson and myself left Amery at 6:45, drove to Somerset, hopped on a shuttle bus, and we were the first shuttle bus to go across the new bridge. And it is just spectacular. Words can't describe it. It just takes your breath away to drive across it. And we were the first ones. So that was good. Lots of people there. I think they figured about 2,000 people. We were there first, so we got some chairs to sit in, but most people were standing, but it was just tremendous. What an honor to be there. And of course, politicians spoke, but they kept it short because it was really hot. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. It was really something to be there. Okay, Fran, now we can take the roll call.
Certainly. Strobuch?
Here.
Riemenschneider?
Here.
Paulson?
Here.
Erickson?
Here.
Vicker?
Here.
And Davis.
Here.
And Eric from SEH is going to lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Eric. First item on the agenda is a public hearing concerning rezoning of a property from R1 to R2 to a two-family resident. Is there anyone here to speak to the public hearing? Nobody, thank you.
Do you want to describe it?
Do I want to describe it?
I think.
Okay.
Fran.
Sure. I can describe it if you'd like.
Yeah.
This concerns property that's owned by Ron Anderson on Griffin Street at the south end of the golf course. He is interested in building a twin home or bi-home type of complex for sale. It's currently zoned R1 single family, so it needs to be rezoned R2 two-family residential. He has potentially already a buyer who is interested in buying the twin home from him. And this is something that would help contribute to the housing stock here in Amery and also be additional new tax base as well. The Planning Commission met last week and reviewed the project and recommended to the City Council after holding the public hearing to go ahead and permit the rezoning and adopt the rezoning ordinance.
Okay. Any questions, other questions? All right, then the second public hearing, input on an application for a kennel license from Sandy Hoke. And Fran tells me that they've had a license for, and this is a renewal.
Yes. Yeah, Hokies have had a kennel license at 209 Harriman for the past 3 or 4 years. They have to reapply for that license every year. That permits them to have more than 3 dogs at their residence in the city. Part of that process and application by ordinance is we have to hold a public hearing. The application goes to Chief Marson for his review. They've provided all of the necessary information about each dog's, the dog's veterinary care and their rabies vaccine. There haven't been any complaints or any comments regarding their dogs that I have ever heard of. And so this would be a renewal of their existing license that they're asking for.
Okay, thank you, Fran. Questions? Okay, thank you. Minutes of the July 12th council meeting, they are in your packet. If you would take a look at those, please.
Move to approve.
Second that.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Upcoming events? Well, the last Music on the River coincides with CCO TV coming to the lake. So they have to leave by 6 o'clock on Friday. So Dan Young from Community Club sent out a notice they'd really like to have people there by 5 o'clock so we can get a little more TV exposure or filming to go on. So that is Friday the 18th. Any other?
So they're not going to be around after that?
Pardon me?
They're going to be gone after that?
They'll film, they come in on Wednesday to check things out. They'll film Thursday and Friday, but they have to leave Amery by 6 o'clock to get back to Minneapolis for the 10 o'clock show, 10 o'clock news. So that's why. So come early and stay late.
So they can't see the music
Yes.
now?
Yes, sir.
I have an announcement also. GDSI is doing a community-wide softball tournament this weekend on the 5th, on Saturday. The fire department has a team in it. The funds are going towards our charity this year because we won the softball tournament last year. So it'll be going to the Wisconsin Burn Camp.
Okay.
So we thank GDSI very much. And I know they have a craft show, dunk tank, things like that for just general public to come and enjoy too.
So the
It's
game
all
is,
at Jorgensen Field.
okay. Starting time? Sorry.
It's an all-day softball tournament.
Oh, okay.
I think the crafts and stuff are set up about 10 o'clock or so.
Okay. Saturday.
Yeah, it's a long day.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Officers' reports. We'll start with Public Works.
Oh, I thought,
Sorry, I'm so rude.
I thought it was me.
Good evening.
Don't want to go through this again.
It's been a busy month. We've been paving all over town, pouring concrete, storm drain repairs. We are aware of the leaky valve on Main Street and Maple. It will stop. It's an old leaky valve, and it's been like that for many years. Howard Knutson tells me about it, and he knows best. So, another thing to be aware of is the dump is still open first and third Saturday of every month from 9 to noon. But it is also open upon request. If you need to get something out of the yard or after all these storms, we keep it open as much as we can. And like I say, if you need to get it open, give us a call. We'll open it up. Like I say, be aware the guys, they've been out doing storm drain patching and repairs, sidewalk repairs, as well as our summer help with this little bit of humidity here and there. They've been watering every morning, so be aware of them and be careful. Yeah. Pretty quiet month.
Do you want to give the telephone number where people can call you if they need to get out to the dump with stuff and you're not open?
You can call me at 715-554-0207. That's my work phone. And like I say, just give us a call between 7 and 4 and we can have it open. So any day that works for you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thanks, Jance. Police Chief, Dale Keller. Police Chief? Fire Chief, Tom Marson. Okay, I have Police Chief on here, so whoever that is, please come up and give your report.
I think I'll be police chief for the day. Appreciate that.
No problem.
I'd be more popular if I was fire chief, though. He's not even listening to me. Good evening. I presented to the council and the media the activity reports for the month of July, along with a little extra information there, and I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions that come along there. Just a note, weather permitting tomorrow, we'll be testing our severe weather sirens at about 1:50. So no need to call City Hall or the police department if you're wondering why the sirens are going off. Many of you who live within the city here, in our water bills, got our little flyer to know our city ordinances and stuff like that. We hope that if there are any questions that you contact City Hall, and City Hall can certainly direct any questions to the proper departments if needed. Larry's got a flyer up there that I think he's gonna put up. I think many of you know, a couple years ago, when we started the K-9 program there, that it was done mostly under donations and fundraisers with limited resources from the actual police budget there. And we decided to do a fundraiser raffle at the, for the K-9 Association there. There are several prizes. There's almost $2,000 in cash prizes given away, gun, a bow, and several other items there. That kicked off yesterday, and it's going to go through Saturday, a fall festival there, with the drawing being on Sunday. And Heather and the K-9 officer, Kip Harris, have somehow determined that they're going to be able to live stream it on Facebook or something like that. I know nothing about that, but the tickets are $10 a piece, or 5 tickets for $40, and they can also be purchased at various locations: Dick's Market, Anchor Point, Countryside, On Target Sports, the pizzeria, and Amery Farm and Home. They have locations there as well there. And you can stop at our police department and get tickets, or from an off-duty officer there. If you haven't stopped at the police department, if you mention maybe an officer that might have referred you, that would be good there. So if there's any other questions, you can certainly contact us. Lastly, we will be presenting an outdoor movie on Saturday, April 19th. The movie Lego Batman will conclude a fun-filled afternoon at the Congregational.
August?
August. What did I say?
April
September?
19th.
Well, let's not do April then. And I said August. Let's shoot for August 19th then. The movie Lego Batman will conclude a fun-filled afternoon at the Congregational Church, which is having their annual block party. We'll have officers there as well, along with our K-9 there, so it should be a fun time. So, but let's move on from April.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Library Director, James Nayland. No, he's last this week.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. A couple of last programs for the library summer reading that we've had going on. I should say that the reading incentive part of the program ends on August 12th. We have 505 kids signed up this year, which is really good. The two remaining big family programs are on this Thursday, August 3rd. We have snake discovery coming, and they have more than snakes. It's other reptiles too, but that's what the outfit's called. And that's at 1:30 on Thursday. And that program is sponsored by the Friends of the Library. And then our final one is called Menagerie of Pets, and that's put on by, this is a long name, Domestic Animal Wellness Center and Wildlife Rescue, which is either in Siren Shell Lake or Spooner, one of those S's up there, I'm not sure which one. So that's the end of the summer reading program, and I just want to say thank you to all the sponsors. We have quite a few sponsors this year. We have Friends of the Library, of course, the Amery Women's Club, the School District of Amery, and then some of the businesses in town, Subway, Ida Mays, Dairy Queen, Wisconsin, and Trollhagen all helped us out.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Dale, you're up.
Good evening, council. I don't have a lot to say because I've gone to a narrative format with my report for the month, and hopefully that's going well for everybody. If you have concerns about it, let me know. But I kind of like the format because I can explain a few more details. One of those details that we wanted to share with the public is we want people on our waterways in the area to know that the training for the rescue boat is still continuing. We're on our second set of 4 people training with the boat. We're trying to get 8 people certified as operators by the time we get to bad ice. So I guess I do want to apologize if you're put out by the noise or the activity. We try to move it around so that we're not hitting more than one lake in a given week, the same lake. And I think it's been going well. The only complaint I got was from the River Association because it echoes a little bit down the river, so we haven't been back to the river. But again, just know that we are on our second set, so the amount of time that we need to complete the training is getting less and less, so you'll see it less and less. And we do appreciate your cooperation. The second thing that I wanted to report to the council is that ISO audit has been completed. I completed that with the auditor last Friday. Paperwork was all in order and things like that. I didn't know if you had any questions about what I wrote in my report about how the ISO report works. I'd be glad to answer any of those questions at this time. It's an interesting situation where fire departments are rated and we only get 50% of the rating. Everything, 50% is based on somebody else. So we did our best job on our fire department to bring up our 50% of our rating, but the county is 10% and the waterworks and those guys are 40%. So we won't know the results for 4 to 6 months. It takes that long to run the numbers. So when I find out, I will certainly report that back. I also have, in the last round of fire inspections, been going out to do pre-plans, and I want to thank all the businesses that have been opening their doors to us. Fire inspection is a little bit different this time around. All our high occupancy or high risk buildings are going through a pre-plan process. So we'll be taking photos outside of buildings, inside of buildings, and that's put into a software program for the firefighters for their initial attack. And it's been working very well. So we've completed 12 of those at this point, but we appreciate everybody's cooperation there. One of the issues we've been having with fire alarms, basically, is that fire alarms go off, we get there and we can't get in the building. We've actually had to break into 2 buildings in the last 2 or 3 months. So what we're looking at doing is the fire department's setting up a committee to investigate security lock boxes that will be available to property owners, and hopefully most of the businesses that have entrusted us with a key already will get on board with the it's called Knock Box, and it's a really high security system that allows us to keep the keys at the residence or the business, and then the only people that would have access would be the people certified by Knock to get into that. It could be fire department or police or both, but it's a really nice system, and we're going to have a committee investigate that, and we'll report back to the council on that. Something like that, other communities have just made it part of their new building, and that's why I put on there it might have some kind of ordinance attached to it, so we add all new buildings should have one so that we can get in. It's delaying us as far as EMS calls, it's delaying our response to fire alarms, and we don't like to have to break doors in. Actually, some of my guys do, but I won't let them.
You don't like having to fix it.
Any other questions for me? Yes?
Is it possible as a free press to get a copy of the report that you submit to the council, just like Tom does with the police report?
Sure.
So that the public could have access to that information too? Otherwise I'll have to file an open record request and it's messy.
Can that be shared when I'm emailing to you always?
Yeah, you can, actually, you can just email them to Jessica at the same time if you would like to. Or you can email it to me and I'll email it to her.
Okay, how is
It's all public, his is on the table right there. It's
well,
all public record, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Or just email it to Jessica.
I can email it, if I remember to attach your email to it always. Thanks.
Thank you, Dale, Fire Chief. You didn't hear that. Acting City Administrator, Clerk Treasurer Fran Duncanson, what do you have for us?
Yes. I just have a couple of general comments. Our department has been very busy. As you all know, we've had 8 committee and commission meetings since City Council last met. on July 12th. So we're addressing a lot of issues within the city and trying to get some things done. Also, the date closes coming up on August 10th for the city administrator candidates is coming up. And as you know, we get an update once a week from the recruiter. We have 18 applicants as of last Friday for the position. With the deadline coming up, and the recruiter had commented to me that it's a lot of applicants come in at the last minute as well. So just kind of an update for the community's information on that process. Now that it's August, Department of Revenue is putting out some information for us that will be very valuable during the budget process. And I want to share just a little bit of that with you along with some of my comments about it. So as we go into the budgeting cycle coming up, these are some things to keep in mind. The first thing I want to mention is net new construction. I am disappointed to say that Amery, percentage-wise, is one of the lowest municipalities in Polk County for net new construction last year. There are a couple lower than us. I hate to name names, but there are 3 of them that are lower than us. You know, that's reflective of that we don't have new, as of January 1, we don't have a lot of new homes built, new businesses being built, new structures going up, and things of that nature. Net new construction is important because that is a percentage and a number that the state uses in the formula to set our levy limits coming up. So that's is always a key factor in determining what that is. Interestingly though, even though our net new construction percentage is low, what is high and has gained substantially is the city's equalized value has increased by 6% and over $11 million this year. What that indicates is that when our property is bought and sold within the city of Amery, is that people are paying more for property when they buy it. They're paying higher than what the state says should be a fair market value for the property. So that also is something that is a factor in our ability to borrow, our percentage of how much debt service we can have as well. So even though we don't have a lot being built, what we do have here that's being sold is selling for a good price. And actually within those property sales, what we have the highest increase in sales in would be in our residential and also interestingly, in vacant land, undeveloped land sales is also, that percentage of change was 131% above what the state deems to be a fair market value. Our residential property sales were 10% above what the state deems to be an equalized value. So how this also comes into play is that when we get our aggregate ratio from the Wisconsin Department of Revenue, we expect that to be right around 90%. When that dips below 90 over consecutive years, they will force us to undergo reevaluation, which means the last residential reevaluation we had was in the midst of the downturn of the housing market, and the city lost a lot of value. We lost millions of dollars in value because of that. We are not quite yet at the point of recovering that value from the housing downturn. But once we undergo reevaluation again with the up spike and our equalized value, and we're having good home sales and good property sales in the city, we will be very close to recovering everything we lost, which is, you know, every community in Wisconsin is somewhat going through this. But good news for Amery is that we have good property sales that are going to help us recover from that as well. Also, just as an aside too, we also got information regarding our 4 TIF districts that are open. In overall, the 4 districts increased in value by 9.42%. But within each district, we still have a couple that are operating at a loss. And also, when we talk about our joint review board meeting and that report, That meets now every year to review how each individual district is doing. So I wanted to share that key information with you because that'll be part of our budgeting process. This goes a long way in telling our story financially on what we can do, how we can develop a budget, and all of these factors coming in from the state. Other than that, I believe that's all that I had for this evening. Do you have any questions or anything for me? No? Okay then.
Thanks, Fran. Management Analyst, David?
Okay, Fran covered a lot of what we've been doing at City Hall. We've been keeping busy. Just a few items this evening to talk about. One is, again, walkability study. Hopefully this should be one of the last times we have to put this on here. Over the next 2 weeks, I will be conducting analysis into the areas of Amery, which the Public Works Committee has chosen to focus on. The plan is to present those results at the Public Works Committee later this month. For the website, I'm pleased to announce that online payments for utility bills has gone live as of last Friday. We've actually already had a few people pay their utility bill online, so it is working. The only request that we have is that if you have or need to make a payment plan with Linda for your utility bill, we request that you still make those payments in person at City Hall. And finally, for online payments for court fines, the goal is to have those up by the end of the month. And that's all I have.
For online payments, there's no extra charge or surcharge then?
There is a surcharge on online payments. It is a percentage, and that goes to cover the costs that we accrue from PayPal for each transaction. But if you don't want to, pay that extra charge, it's about 3% on your utility bill. You are still free to come in and pay with cash or check at City Hall.
Thank you, David. Committee reports. The TIF Joint Review Board. Who is that?
Yes, you were out of town, weren't you? I was going to say, GK, you're on that, but yeah, now that you mention it, you were not able to attend that. That is a new statutory requirement that we're required to conduct a joint review board every year that the TIF district is open, and then previously that had only been required to meet when a TIF district was formed, and now it has to meet every year. What we did was we reviewed the financial data and the reports from the state for each individual district. We noted when the district opens, when it closes, what the expenditure period is, how close we are in that, how the district was performing, if it was in the red, in the black, if it was borrowing to other districts or not. Participants in that is, we had representatives here from the tech school, Wisconsin Indian Head Technical College, the Amery School District, the city. We did not have anybody from Polk County there who was able to attend this year. So they appreciate being kept in the loop about how our TIF is performing, since they certainly have a vested interest in it as well. There are the minutes of that are in your packet for your review.
Thank you, Fran. Finance Committee.
Finance Committee met 3 times since our last meeting. I don't have my glasses today, so Chris might have to chime in here and there, or Chris can do it. But our biggest meeting back on the 19th, we had a kind of a large meeting, and we chose to conduct that meeting in open session, although we had the choice to go closed session or open session, and I think it was one of the better meetings we've ever had. We had about 27 people there, including the press. It was a little crowded, but it was very interesting, and our agenda on that meeting was to, and I think Eric is going to discuss this a little bit later. We're trying to define where we would like to put a road to our south industrial park, just next to the airport. We had people from all different, we had the three business people that are primarily affected. We had Ron Anderson, Doug Reinhardt, and we had Countryside. In fact, we had two people from Countryside.
Frank Brenner and Larry
Cole. Larry Cole.
Countryside.
So, and we had people from DOT, and Eric was there. We had two people from SEI, SEH. But we met, we originally had plans to put a road to our new 20 acres or 19 acres a little bit farther north, but we had wetlands problems. And with all the parties involved, including the DOT, we think we have a compromise where property owner Ron Anderson and Countryside will give us the 40 feet each, and the Countryside would give us a little bit more land so we can curve around the wetlands, and we would not impact any wetlands whatsoever. We can reach our property. I'm going to let both Eric and Fran discuss that. That's on the agenda later on. We also met on the 25th of July, and we were to discuss reimbursements to the chief for some of the vandalism to his personal vehicle when it was in the city vehicle was being vandalized at his residence. I'll let Chris address that. We had a budget amendment on the agenda, but we really don't have to. It was for our SCBA units for the fire department. I think it's already part of our budget, so that was an item we did not have to discuss. We did discuss our police union contract reopener, and we are going to recommend that the Finance Committee, Fran, and one of our city attorneys start proceeding with the renegotiations. And I think it's only for a wage opener this year. If I missed anything on the 25th, well, you can talk about the reimbursement.
What we discussed is the time that they did catch somebody who did vandalize the chief's personal car and the squad car. One of the things that we discussed in our committee was the fact because he was a chief of police, that made him a target for the squad car and for his vehicle. His personal vehicle did not have comprehensive insurance, so what we had deemed was taking an amount that if someone typically had a high premium for that minus that to come up with the amount of the $2,200 to replace, because the total amount, Tom, that was 30 for the car,
3,200.
200, right? Something like that. So basically, that's what the city is doing because of the fact, like I said, that being a target because he was a chief of police and his car was there, that what his vehicle was in there. So if he gets that vehicle replaced, repaired or whatever, then the city would do that. If not, if he would sell it, then he would not get that reimbursement. That would just be to assist along with getting it fixed. So that's what we had agreed upon on that.
Okay. We also met in closed session, and we discussed, we had two agenda items in closed session. One was to deal with employee performance evaluations, and the other one was to discuss properties and negotiation with properties within the city. We also met on yesterday, the 1st of August, and we, in connection with our desire to continue to develop possible building sites for real estate, we met in closed session with parties to discuss options available to us to assist developers. our other only single open agenda item last night was a discussion of our boat landing project on North Twin Lake. It's been brought to our attention that there is a possibility that our grant that we are kind of depending upon for the city portion to finance that project may be jeopardized to the point where it would be reduced a certain percentage. And the discussion from the Finance Committee was if we were to allow any kind of reduction from DNR, how much would we allow? The Finance Committee did recommend that we would allow Fran to accept up to a 5% reduction in that grant. In connection with the grant process, we did have one of the other constituents, Ron Anderson, was present, and he did kind of voice his concern that he wasn't part of the original process, and I'm not sure he was there when we did vote on that boat landing, and it was pointed out that was not a unanimous decision, and I'm not sure that it's reversible. I don't know that answer. Is it reversible?
Well, we've applied for the grant, and we're waiting for, the Waterways Commission will be meeting August 8th, and be deciding at that time which projects that were submitted will be funded and at what level they'll be funded at. If the city were to receive less than they were asked, than what we asked for at the grant, at that time it would have to come back to the city council to make decisions about how they wanted to proceed with the project then.
Okay, I think that's pretty much the gist of our meetings, and it is on the agenda, the industrial park. Did I miss anything, Chris?
Nope.
Okay, I'm done.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay. Parks and recreation. Who's that? Not me.
Oh, Rick.
Rick Van
So
Blarkum.
who's the co-chair?
Who's the co-chair?
Probably me.
Oh, yeah, all we got was it.
Yeah.
The report.
Page 32.
I'm there.
You want Chris to have it?
We discussed a request by Michael and Leslie Larson to abandon an
That's
undedicated.
me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're on Parks.
What am I at?
There's no report.
There's no
It's just
report
a-
other than the agenda.
Well, we showed up, we talked about a dog park. And the recommendation of or looked at some plans for a dog park out by the airport. We're still working on some issues through that. We did recommend the purchasing of a new DVR system for at the band shell. We also discussed, because the DVR system that's out there died. So they're gonna reinvest into a new recorder. We talked about some city beautification things, especially with WCCO coming, planters and just making town look a little bit nicer for TV, and in general. We also discussed the city signage on Highway 8 and 46 roundabout. The AEDC has undertaken the task of resurface or recovering, putting new vinyl up on the city sign on Highway 8 and 46 to the east by Pure and Simple, and also on Highway 46 south of town down by Four Corners. They incurred a cost of right around $3,000 to do that, and they just wanted the city's approval and also a recommendation on a layout design that they had. And I think Frank sent that out to everybody, and
Yes, yep.
and so it was kind of a fast-moving thing. They wanted to get something up before August took off too much. So that should be getting done here in the real near future. We talked about the bike trail study, which is an offshoot of the walkability study, or an addition to the walkability study. And we made the recommendation, is that coming up under regular agenda too? I looked that far, I guess.
Yep.
But we gave the city's endorsement of the bike trail study. There's still some moving pieces as far as who's gonna manage it and whatnot. But they want to do a study as to developing a bike trail in and around the city of Amery. And then we also, David gave a report on the park reservation system, and we've been doing financially very well in that. About, don't quote me because I don't have my notes in front of me. It was about $2,000 so far we've taken in from park fees and whatnot, so that's good.
Questions for Tim? None?
Please don't ask, because that was a long time ago.
Many meetings ago. Public Works.
This is you.
Yep, yeah, you're on that committee too though, so. Okay, Public Works met on July 25th. We had a couple of items. The one was a request from Michael and Leslie Larson to abandon an undedicated street off Arlington Boulevard North and West Commons Avenue. Mayor Erickson was there to give us some background on that request, and it was decided that after talking about everything, that it seemed to be more of a civil matter, that something that could be resolved between Larson and his neighbor. So that's where we left that. And then the other item was to follow up on the organizational consultant recommendations. We've put a lot of time and a lot of money into this report, and it was brought up, there was some concern, is this just going to be a big packet sitting on a shelf gathering dust? And no, that's not going to happen. It will be used, but we want to let the public know that there are a lot of items in there that we are going to be looking at as we continue down the road on this new venture. That was it for Public Works.
Thank you. And as, to follow up what Julie said, we know that there are things that we can probably do, but a lot of it depends on a new city administrator being put in place, and we all working together with that person. So it's, as Julie said, it's not going to sit on the shelf and gather dust. We will work on it. Public Safety.
Public Safety Committee met on July 25th before Finance. We had two items that we went into closed session. One was under 19.85 sub 1 sub F to consider financial, medical, social, personal history, or disciplinary data of specific persons. And this is in regards to the fire department. And the other one was also closed session 19.85 sub 1C, consider employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation data. Again, in regards to the fire department. Then we came out of closed session. After our open session, we also talked about the Marijuana Group's recommendations. Again, our group said, a lot of it does deal with the new city administrator, but I know it was also talked about in finance too, regarding having some meetings, setting up monthly meetings with the public safety and I forgot.
Department heads.
Department heads. Couldn't think of it. Department heads. And but again, the same thing is we're starting to implement some things in there, but there's several items that are contingent upon our new city administrator in getting those items in. And then the other thing that came up was we have our municipal court ordinance right now, and right now we have Clayton, Clear Lake, and Amery in our municipal court. We didn't get in writing, but we had some talk that possibly another community, Village Balsam Lake, might want to get into our municipal court. So what our committee is just recommending at this time is, we're looking at, it's a joint municipal court, but the goal is here, we as the city don't want to be losing money having other people coming into our court. So we also want to make sure that if someone that they have to make an actual written request to the council, and then we have to approve it whether or not they're going to be a part of our municipal court. So that's, if there's other, jurisdictions, they'd have to write in writing that they want to be a part of it. We will determine, whether or not it's going to be approved. So that was, we are moving forth with council approval. That is what we had in safety committee.
Thank you. And last but not least, Planning Commission.
Planning Commission met on July 27th, and we had, a public hearing was held on the request to rezone that property that Ron Anderson owns on Griffin Street West, to rezone that from R1 residential single family to R2 to allow him to build a side-by-side home. And so that is required by law that it goes to the Planning Commission first for a public hearing, and then their recommendation was to send it to the city council for a vote. They had no problem with it. Said go ahead, but by law, it has to go to the city council for also a public hearing, which we just had. And now it will be an agenda item under new business. And that's all we had this time.
Thank you. Moving on to new business. Item number 8, rezoning ordinance, property from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Two-Family Residential for property located on Griffin Street across from Whispering Waters and is legally described as Lot 3. I'm not going to go through all that. And owned by Ron Anderson.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion been made, seconded. More discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 9, the kennel license for the Hokies at 209 Harriman Avenue.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second it this time, Chris.
Peter to it. Motion made and seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 10, RFPs to recodify sitting ordinances. Somebody
Okay,
want-
I'm going to turn this over to David. He
Okay.
prepared, as part of his additional duties, he went ahead and put the RFPs out. We got 2 responses. There's a summary available in your city council packet of the 2 respondents we got. There's not a lot of difference between American Legal Publishing and General Code. General Code is slightly less cost by about $400 or $500. American Legal Publishing, they both do a lot of work in Wisconsin for organizations as well as municipalities. American Legal also does work for huge, huge cities across the country like LA and New York and things of that nature. I don't see a lot of difference in the services they do provide. A comment that I would have is General Code does a lot of work for our type of community and communities our size and in our area, and they have done a lot of work with these, the old Harvey Code that we had in converting those and updating those. They do have a lot of experience with that because a lot of communities in this area had Allen Harvey codes. So they are good at working that. Either one would do a great job. I guess, personally, I do lean a little bit in the direction more of General Code due to the fact that they are a little bit cheaper and that they do have experience in our type of organization and converting the type of code that we already have.
Motion to approve General Code.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and seconded to approve General Code to recodify our ordinances. Any more discussion?
I do have one question. I see under whoever the first vendor is, American Legal Publishing, they have the web hosting option, the internet hosting. Is that something that General Code will do as well, so that we can have our ordinances online, or?
Yes, General Code
So we
does
can have it on our
They-
website?
They most, pretty much any of the think I sent this out, the RFP out to 6 or 7 different agencies or firms that do code codification. I think some of them didn't apply just to the fact that they don't necessarily operate in the Midwest or in Wisconsin. But they pretty much all do online hosting. It's kind of a standard these days that they do it, they host it, and then what they also do is anytime we have an update, we send them the update if it's an amendment or something we're adding to the code of ordinances, and then they'll add it to it for us as well. So that way we'll always have if someone goes online, it'll always be the most updated version of the code, and we don't have. And we have now on our server, which is our code as it was approved back in 2002, and then a bunch of different amendments that are all separate files.
I like that it's searchable too.
Right. Well, I just didn't.
Either one would be searchable.
In the, if you want to see, we have the RFPs as well. They all go into the different facets of their online features. They're quite the same. They're quite the same in what they offer. They're different softwares, obviously, because they kind of develop their own software. In both the RFP, I opted not just to go into such detail, because in the RFPs alone, they'll have they both had 5 to 6 pages just describing their online services.
Were they comparable in cost then? 'Cause I think the first one said a cost, first year was whatever free, then the service, so
Yes,
that was
they're
comparable then?
in cost.
Okay, for that.
The only difference that I really noticed was American Legal talks about that if you have an update, you can update it almost every week. General Code says, if you want to update, that's fine, but they kind of gather everything for a month, and then they do monthly updates.
Okay.
That way, they're not updating it every week.
And we only meet once a month anyway.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that one.
Okay, answered your question? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are hiring general code, thank you. Finance Committee's recommendation regarding the Industrial Park Road development. Eric, I bet that's you.
You're looking at me.
You do.
I have just a brief update too. I wanted to, forgot as part of my report on this as well, is that Frank Brenner, the CEO of Countryside, called me this morning. And Countryside has had their board meeting, and they are looking forward to working with us in support of developing a road. They can't make us exactly any promises until they see the details, but it was very well received. They're very supportive. They wanted to compliment the city on the meeting that was held. They wanted to compliment us on how well the meeting was ran and controlled. And they, yeah, Rick. I guess that's you.
That was kind of hard.
Pounding on the table. It's 27 people. But he said, the having so many people there, he said that he attends a lot of meetings where they're missing a couple of the key stakeholders and players. So they're there, they meet, but they don't really accomplish anything or get anything done because they're missing a few people. So even though we did have a large meeting and we had 27 people there and it was a little bit cramped quarters, he was very pleased that everyone was there and we could actually get things accomplished and have all of the stakeholders there at one time. So that is good news to receive such a favorable and positive response from them moving forward. So I just wanted to share all of that with you before Eric gets into a little bit of the nuts and bolts here of what we talked about that day.
Yeah, so actually the entire council and the mayor were at the meeting either as members of the audience or as part of the committee. So talking with Fran today, we didn't know if really needed to do an explanation of all of what happened there, but thought it would be beneficial for those that weren't in attendance if I went through kind of how we ended up or how the finance committee ended up at the recommendation, if that's all right with the council. And so what'll be easiest for me is if I actually can point at the map and go through it that way, but it won't be necessarily directed at you, if that's all right?
That's fine.
Okay. Then should I use that microphone or?
Yep, sure can.
Okay, so the reason for the meeting was to get access to the city's industrial park, or new industrial park, which is a 20-acre parcel south end of town. To get a little bit of frame of reference here, here's the car dealership, here's the Countryside Co-op, here's Earthbombers, and the 20-acre parcel sits right here. It's north of, here's a runway on the airport. So it doesn't have any access to the highway by itself. And the original plan for the 20 acres was to access through Ron Anderson's property. She's got an 8 to 10 acre parcel that sits right here. The original access or concept of an access went through that property and then accessed the 20 acres. In the process of going through some of the steps, our original plan showed this green wetland delineation. That's part of the Wisconsin Wetland Inventory mapping. That's mapping that's done by the DNR with aerials, and it's pretty elementary. It's just an indication that a wetland's there. Last year, Cooper Engineering went out and did an actual delineation, wetland delineation on the property. It might be hard to see from out in the crowd, but this yellow line or orange line is the actual wetland delineation. And what that did is it restricted access to the 20-acre parcel through Mr. Anderson's property by requiring the need to go through a wetland. Now, going through a wetland isn't an end-all. You can put a road through a wetland. It's more costly, and it requires permits from the DNR that aren't guaranteed permits. You have to go through a certain process, practical alternatives analysis, and permitting. It's not guaranteed that you get it. So at that time, the city administrator directed us, SCH, to look at some other options. Or actually, we didn't look at other options. It was directed to us to move the concept access down here where it's shown on this drawing. So that's what we did, and that would go through Riverwalk LLC, which is Doug Reinhardt's company here, and he owns this building. And then the Countryside Co-op owns this kind of L-shaped piece here, so it would come through their property as well. And we had a meeting with the DOT and the DNR, the DNR weren't there. The DOT talked about this access with the city and everybody, and the DOT was open to the concept of putting this here. In the meantime, I think there was some other input from developers and business development, and which sparked the finance committee meeting. And so we started talking about how to access this property and how to best serve also other businesses along this corridor. And Mr. Whitley, Ron Anderson's attorney, actually suggested this location of the road, which is splitting. Alderman Davis mentioned it splits the properties. So it's 40 feet on Ron Anderson's property, 40 feet on the co-op property, and then would bend down and go around the wetland. So everybody that was there, Mr. Reinhardt, Mr. Anderson, representatives from the co-op were all open to that concept. The DOT said basically you need to submit something and we'll review it. So I think that kind of summarizes what the Finance Committee's recommendation ended up being, which was to pursue potential access as indicated.
Yeah, and kind of the reason that we wanted to move it up to split the two properties is it would enable both those particular businesses to do development on their own properties.
Right. So that the Ron Anderson's property, if it wasn't access here, it'd have to try to get access from the back or get access on the front. This provides access to all properties, or not all properties, but Mr. Anderson's, the co-op, and the 20-acre industrial park.
Yeah, because part of it was the DOT mentioned not having too many accesses. If we put that road down, could end up limiting and make it hard for, like Ron Anderson's property up there, and to get in. the road was where it was initially now.
Right, yep.
Are there any other questions? Thanks, Eric.
And this,
Tim?
Oh, I have a question.
Go, Tim.
So, I know we haven't bid this out, I know this is in a very conceptual phase. If you had to take a guess, what would the cost difference be between the originally proposed road and the Engle Road to the north?
Well, just looking at the size of it, you know, it's a percentage because it ends up being a longer road. And I guess I don't have a number, but just eyeballing the difference, you know, maybe it's a 10 to 20% longer road, which in turn is more cost.
10 or 20% more?
Yeah,
but it doesn't have to go through a wetlands.
does not have to go through wetlands, yep.
The one through the wetlands was, that was almost a $2 million road.
With all the infrastructure, yeah. That would include all the infrastructure with it. The second alternative that would utilize Reinhardt's driveway, that would involve wetlands.
My concern is that we're gonna incur 10 to 20% or even 5%, whatever the number may be, more cost putting this other road in, and we don't have a promise that there's gonna be a hotel there. And if we're gonna be spending $1 million on a road, I think at least we can get some sort of developer's agreement that there's gonna be a hotel and that property is going to be built or developed or something within a reasonable time frame. Otherwise, we already have a road right away in place that we can blast a road in a lot quicker and cheaper. And I know that's not something anybody likes to hear, but
We thought about that too, and I've given that some thought, and we would like to have a developer's agreement, and we probably will request one. But when we proposed putting that road between those two properties, Countryside that gave them more interest to put a store out there themselves. See, Countryside also builds convenience stores and that type of thing, and that would be a very favorable location for them. So whether or not that's a hotel, or I very much suspect it's going to be something. If there's not a road there, it's not going to be anything.
Right.
So I guess from my perspective, I have to agree with Jason Whitley. I think that's a preferred spot.
But it's going to be a lot more work, because we're going to have to do legal work to get all that property turned over to City Street, where we already have a right-of-way in the other lot. So there's going to be cost, time involved with that, plus a longer road.
Well, there's still costs involved in the other one.
Yeah, I thought there was something that one of the other stakeholders did not like where that road was.
Yeah, I think that was.
Was that the co-op?
The co-op was not happy with the.
The original road.
The original road, and they are one of the, they own the back part of that.
Right.
Proposed original road. They're the ones who wanted to have access to frontage. So, no, that was not a sure thing that we would have the back part of that road. We had a possibility from Reinhardt's of having the front part of it. And of course, we'd still have to have that deeded over as well.
So that's why when we looked at all the stakeholders there that have property here, they all preferred that northern roadway, all the property owners that own there. And part of it, like I said, was the development. The DOT guy was sitting there and limiting access. So it could end up where one of the property owners wants to build and they don't have access on 46.
Right.
Then,
But the access for the second proposed road isn't guaranteed either.
not guaranteed by DOT, but in looking at what we still have to go through the process. But
We're requesting, that's what we're here for tonight. We'd like to request.
so the new concept is made.
From the DOT that they would allow us to have a road there. Yeah, we're not putting a road there yet, but we'd like to request from.
Right, I understand that. I'm just throwing these discussion points out there that is going to be coming up.
So that was a concern of one of the stakeholders, that they would have absolutely no access if we took that, the original one to the south. So, that's kind of where we came from on that. So I guess I would make I'll make a motion that we
You've got in your minutes there with the
Do we have-
Finances Committee recommendation was to proceed with the gathering of the information to authorize SEH to work with DOT to locate the proposed new street on the quote purple line property between Anderson and Countrysides with the wetland jog. And then for the possible street development contingent upon the Board of Countryside approval, and with the phone call I got this morning, Countryside is on board with that as well. So that's what the finance recommendation was.
Okay, that would be my motion to proceed forward with that road between the two properties.
And I will second that.
Motion made and seconded to proceed with the industrial park road development. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, thank you. Budget amendment for downtown planters.
Yes, coming out of the Parks Committee meeting and Community Beautification, the chair of the committee, Griffin Street, had talked to Rob out at Dragonfly about what it would take to get large planters downtown. We've been encouraged to do that with WCCO coming, and then also these would be permanent planters. They wouldn't be there just for WCCO. They would be there every year. What they're looking at are what I call them a kettle planter. They're a large planter. It would be 36 inches across, 3 feet. Dragonfly has offered to sell the planters to the city at cost, which would be $250 each. They would donate for this year the plants and the soil and the fertilizer, and then the city crew would help them place the planters downtown. They estimated we would need 8 to 12 planters downtown to do that. At Van Blaricum's request, I did contact the Amery Women's Club and the Amery Community Club to see if they would be interested in participating in the cost of the community beautification. Upon the approval by the City Council, the Amery Women's Club has very generously come forward and offered to make a contribution of $500 towards that cost. The Community Club also already does so much very generous work in that they spend well over $1,000 a year with the hanging baskets that are already downtown, and so for them, they needed to pass at this time on that. But depending upon whether you go with 8 or 12 planters, we're looking at $2,000 to $3,000. That's a little bit more than what the parks budget can absorb. So that would need to have a budget amendment to do that. And that would also require that we dip into our rainy day fund as well to allocate that. And we do still have some funds left. I know this year we've been a little rough on it, but we do have some balance there that's accumulated, and also some for this year as well that hasn't been expended. So if that's something that you would like to do, we would have the planters then would be permanent and would be downtown every year. The good news is I was surprised then for like next year, the annual maintenance per planter was estimated to be about $40 a planter. So that could be built into the parks budget for next year. I was expecting it to be more than that, but about $40 a year.
Are these planters going to be pinned in at all, or?
I haven't seen them, so
Okay.
I don't know exactly what we're working with, but we can combine.
Secure them however?
Yeah,
And they're going to be removed for snow removal?
I would imagine. Dragonfly has spots picked out through town that they'd like to place them, so we will see where they're sitting.
You just don't want to see them get beat up by the snow and the plows and
Yeah.
everything else, so.
What I understand it'd be similar to what they have like in Richmond or Hayward or, you know, it's
So-
become popular. I apologize, I don't know more defined details about it really.
And then with our walkability or something, this won't impair areas, these planters being in the way? A room for them?
Like I said,
Yeah.
You don't either know, yeah, we don't know
I'm not sure
the.
where they want to place them, but I'm not going to allow them to put them right in the middle of the sidewalk, so.
Or the middle of the road.
Put your foot down, Gene.
Watch out, he's putting his foot down.
My final question is, with the budget amendment, taking it out of the rainy day fund, that's a prudent step. It's not gonna overextend that fund or anything
No,
like
no,
that.
it won't, it won't.
And maybe the fine role model of the women's club can encourage other service clubs and organizations to come forward?
I agree with that. Had we had kind of more time to spend on this, you know, a lot of communities kind of have a sponsorship for each planter every year with a small, you know, plaque on the planter sponsored by. You know, unfortunately, in the rush to kind of throw this together and get it going in time for the TV station coming to town, we didn't really have time to pursue that type of thing. But that may be something that in the future, going forward, year to year, if, you know, a local business wants to sponsor the planter that's, you know, near their business or something for the replanting of that or whatever, a lot of places do that too.
Maybe that's something that Paul Schaefer could work on?
Tim?
Sure, I think Paul can do that. Congratulations, Paul.
Not to put you on the spot or
You've been
anything,
nominated.
I
I make a recommendation to do the budget amendment.
I second.
If you could put in the minutes, just finding the budget amendment as you explained it.
Okay,
Okay, motion made and seconded to pass the budget amendment. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
also, we are very fortunate to have with us Nell Anderson, who is president of the Amery Women's Club. And this would maybe be a good chance to take a photo of Nell presenting the check to the mayor for the Women's Club contribution for the planters downtown. Thank you, Women's Club.
I do want to say that the Amery Women's Club, our mission statement, should I go over there? Slowly.
Yeah, you can go.
That'd be easier there, see them.
It's a small check, that's what we have to think.
It's just been a fun show, hasn't it?
Amery Women's Club, our mission statement is basically that we are dedicated to community involvement and by enhancing the lives of others. And obviously, this is one of the things that we're doing. We have the Amery Beautification Project that we do. They get all their money from the Bridge Marathon, but we have those 12 planters out that Ted's in plants, and we pay for the flowers and that for those, but now we are able to add a little bit more. So, thank you.
Didn't want to get you while you were talking.
Thank you
so much.
Certainly, you're welcome, thanks.
Oh, I see the check is made out to the city of Amery, not the mayor, okay.
You didn't spell your name for
Okay, where are we?
13.
We're on number 13, lucky number 13.
Well, his recommendations, organizational consultant recommendations. Gary's not here. Does he have anything to recommend?
No, I added that as an agenda item, as you had requested that each committee take
okay.
a look at those recommendations and moving forward, and also that it be an agenda item just to report on what the committees had discussed about it, which we've kind of already covered in our committee reports, but namely a training coming up for the department heads is one of the things that we could do sooner rather than later.
Great.
And so we are working to put that together and hold that. There'll be 2 sessions, actually, one that I'm going to do with the department heads, and then another one for department heads and possibly city council members that would be with a consultant as well, that we can hopefully hold over at the fire hall. And then the other ones, kind of the committee's consensus was they were items that would really need to wait until a new city administrator is here for their participation.
Okay, thank you, Fran. Operators licenses.
We still have a few of those on the agenda. They've all provided the necessary educational requirements and passed a background check, so I would recommend that they be approved.
So move.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the operator's licenses. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Water recreation study.
Okay.
Okay, give me a second. Set this up really quick.
Intermission.
Shouldn't need that long.
Okay, let's see. There we are. Okay, very good. I will let you hijack Valuable, important information.
Well, just give them your card with your email on it, so we can send it.
He doesn't have my email?
Okay.
Everybody here knows how to get a hold of me.
Not able.
Is it gonna go?
His email's at the top, you sent him.
Sorry, Dale, it's not stupid for me. It's very valuable.
Come on.
You feel better now? Yeah. You're good.
This isn't in there.
Oh. Okay, the study.
Before.
All right, that's what I was looking for.
Physical in the back.
There you go.
There. Nope, hold up.
Connectivity issues. Does that be hooked to the back of the TV?
It's acting like it.
Or is it
It
like
should.
Bluetooth?
No, let me do.
Just ask because that thing is hanging there.
What?
Because Eric said first.
No, it's connected. Give it a shot and see what happens. Should I do that? Let's go back to HDMI 1, which it was already on first. To start off with. There we go. Now, where's the presentation? That's the question.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. So the water recreation study we've been talking about for quite a bit of time now. It's kind of background quickly right at the beginning. The water recreation, it's been talked about in Amery for a long time. We want to build a pool, splash pad. How do we improve water recreation options here in the City of Lakes? And the Amery Community Foundation, along with the city, has commissioned this study. It's funded by the Amery Community Foundation, so we want to thank them for that right off the bat. And what we're going to kind of go over in this study is the background, kind of talked about quickly, the desire to see in the community more options for water recreation. We're going to go through types of water recreation that was considered in this study, advantages to different types of recreation, conducted a couple surveys, considerations when considering adding additional recreation into the community, and then an overall recommendation. So as I said, commissioned by the City of Amery and the Amery Community Foundation. The purpose is simply to survey the Amery community to assess their desire for increased water recreation options within Amery, and then to assess the feasibility of implementing those options. A couple of the methods that were used: did a survey of the Amery community as a whole, then a survey of Wisconsin municipalities around us. How do they compare? What kind of water recreation options do they offer? And then just kind of a review of water recreation options as a whole. So types of water recreation was three. We looked into pools, kind of that basic option that people talk about a lot. When we talked about pools, did not put any stipulations on on size or their amenities, just kind of in general. Pools come in a lot of different shapes and sizes, so that's what we're just looking at in general. What do people offer? What are people interested in? Second one was a splash pad. Splash pads come with a variety of different names. They're known as spray parks, rain pads, spray grounds, splash zones. There's a lot of different names that different communities and organizations have developed for those. But essentially what they are is that they are a no standing water park. They kind of, you have sprays and different water fountains that come for kids to run through. The advantages that people see into splash parks or splash pads is that, one, they reduce the risk of drowning because, again, there is no standing water. Because of that, there's lower personnel costs. You do not have to have an active on-duty lifeguard all the time. They are a lot more handicap accessible than pools. You see a lot of them, they're either kind of concrete or this soft, I don't even know what to call it, jelly kind of material that's on the ground. It's really accessible for wheelchairs and people with disabilities to get in there and have fun in the water. They're also very customizable. Looked into different organizations that build splash pads, and there's all these different types of fountains and playthings that they can put into your splash pad. And then even some of them, the way they construct them, you know, if you want to 2-3 years down the road change up the different features, you can even do that. Last area we looked into is beach recreation. You know, in Amery we do have access to a lot of natural water recreation, so we wanted to look into what would be people's interest in also expanding that. Those kind of different beach recreation options include floating docks, piers, volleyball courts, boat rentals, things of that nature. Now, before we get into the surveys and the different data we looked into, one of the things I looked into is what are the advantages of having additional recreation? What do they bring to a community? Basically, they bring three things. They bring there's economic advantages, social advantages, and health and well-being. A lot of studies have shown that with the economic advantages, not when there are recreational facilities, the properties adjacent to those facilities and just in the area in general often have higher property values. People desire to live near such amenities, especially families that have younger kids. They want their kids to be able to be close to parks and pools and things like that. So that increases your property value, which increases tax base. It causes people to want to move to that community because there are the amenities that they desire. Which also results in employers coming into that community because they know that people visit that community and want to live in that community. Social, they give a place for people to gather, build a sense of camaraderie and community involvement. With the public nature of most of these recreational facilities, they're either no cost or low cost, so it allows people of all different backgrounds, economic status, age, sex, race, ideology to come and be together and get out. Which leads to health and well-being. There's lots and lots of studies that show that when the more recreational options that are available to a community, the healthier that community is. It gives people an incentive to get off the couch, put the phone down, get away from the television, and go play some tennis, go run, take the dog out, go to a pool, get outside, work out, and just be more active. So that leads to, now we see that there are a lot of benefits to recreation, as a whole, of which water recreation is included. So moving into some of the data we looked into. So first we had the community survey. The survey was a short survey. It's only about 10 questions. Asked people a variety of different information based from, are you a resident of Amery, kind of your age demographic to kind of get an idea of who's answering, and then different questions about water recreation specifically. It was distributed via the first quarter utility bills that were sent out in April. The surveys were in hard copy in the bills as well themselves. They were available at City Hall to be picked up and filled out. And then we also had them online, hosted through SurveyMonkey. There was a link available on the city's website. Said the surveys were accepted from April 14, when the first quarter utility bills went out, until May 31st. In total, we had 435 surveys returned. There's almost a 50-50 split, with 235 being hard copies and 200 being filled out online. Combined, if you just do the 435, it's about 21.55% of the total population in Amery. And then if you look at just of how many utility bills were sent out, it's about 35.16% response rate, which is an absolutely phenomenal response rate for a study like this. I think for the housing study, we only had about a 15% response rate, so much higher here. So it's good to know that the people in Amery are invested in bettering their community, and that also shows that recreation, water recreation, is a big thing for them. 86% of the people that completed it lived within city limits. 34% were 60 years old, or I should say older, which isn't surprising considering that almost 50% of the population in Amery is in that age bracket. But it is worthy to note that actually the majority, almost exactly 51%, of respondents were in that age range between 30 and 59 years old. Those are generally the people that have children that would be using a lot of these facilities, or they themselves would like to use these facilities. So I got a bunch of different graphs up here. These relate to the different questions that were asked. So one of the first questions we asked on the survey, after we asked about your age and do you live in Amery, is okay, what kind of recreational options would you be interested in? The first one by far that was most popular was a pool, with over 53% of respondents selecting a pool, followed about half of that, a little under half of that, with a splash pad at 21%, even of a beach equipment at 10%, and other, 6% of people didn't answer the question. The other in this case, for the most part, generally was people disagreeing about having a pool, using this as an opportunity to say they didn't want any of the options. Next question we asked people was, okay, if you want a pool or a splash pad, would you use it? And I think it's important to note that well over 50% said that they not only would they use it, they'd use it more than twice a month. We had 59% said they would use it at least 3 times a month. If you want to use it at all, we have over 60%. Only 24% said they would not use it. And then 1% didn't answer the question at all. 1% is about 5 respondents. And then we asked the respondents, okay, you're interested in a pool, what kind of features, what about a pool do you want? I think the most telling of these is that the number one feature people wanted were exercise classes. That's especially for older people that have ligament issues or muscle deterioration or trying to rehab an injury. Water exercise is very important because it takes a lot of stress off of those joints and off of those leg muscles. And especially also for pregnant women, it is proven that water exercise is very good for them. Followed closely by both swimming lessons and lap swim. So I think that shows that it's not, for many of the people in the community, it's not just about going and having fun. It is about getting out and having that exercise. A lot of people mentioned in the comments or just writing on the side that one of their biggest things they're looking for is a place that they can take their kids for swimming lessons. I know a lot of people right now, if they were take their kids to swimming lessons, they're either taking them to New Richmond or Osceola. And then, interestingly, the other options that were kind of more other features to the pool that I think some kids might like a slide or a diving board or having a shallow wading end, were actually the lesser chosen options. And then finally we asked, okay, if we want a pool, we're going to have to finance this summer. Someone's got to pay for it. So we asked people, would you be in favor of having a special assessment? That's one way that communities have for funding such a project in a special assessment. How that works is the city on your tax bill would say, for the next amount of time, we attach a certain percentage or a certain dollar amount onto your tax bill specifically to pay for this this pool. 50% of people, almost exactly 50% of people said they would support it. Only 23% didn't. However, it's important to notice that 24% said unsure, and 3% didn't answer the question. I think that 24% is telling in that I think a lot of times people didn't understand necessarily what a special assessment did. One issue looking back, hindsight is 2020. It didn't necessarily describe what a special assessment is. So some people did comment not sure what this is, and that's why they put unsure. But even if all those 24% were against it, you're still at almost about a 50-50 split for assessment.
Were they all taxpayers that responded, or do we know?
As I said, I think I put earlier, 86% of the respondents lived within the city, so then they would be taxpayers.
Or
Renters.
Or renters. That is a possibility, although with there's a potential. We didn't ask them if they're renters, but those that went out with the utility bills generally go to the property owner. And so unless they then sent it on to the renter, the renters would have had to get it by some other means. And then we asked them, okay, if the community, the city, were to build a pool or a splash pad, how much would you be willing to pay for it? Most people, what do I have here? I want to get this right. Over 50% said they'd be willing to pay something. Majority of people saying no more than $5. 15% said they would pay up to $10. A small percentage of 6% say they'd pay up to $15. 24% said it would be free. 16% did not answer the question. With that 16%, that can be broken down with some people who right off the bat just said no pool, didn't fill out the rest of the survey. And then also some people saved this question for the last question on the survey, which was an open comment. Also, we also asked, I didn't have enough space, didn't want to put another graph in there. While 21% of people said they'd support a splash pad being built, only 34% said they would actually use it. 20% said they would be unsure. I think a lot of that goes into most people that use splash pads are of younger age or kind of more meant for children. And then at the last part of the survey, we provided an area for people to give comments. We had, of the 435 surveys given in, 191 people left comments. The most common comments were people either expressing why they do not want a pool or why they want a pool. Some people that did not want a pool, biggest comments were, I don't want this on my taxes, I'm not going to use it. We have lakes and a river to use. People that were in support of the pool said, this is what, we need this. We need this to bring people to the community, bring employers, attract people to come visit the community. I don't want to be driving 20, 25 miles to take my kids to swimming lessons. I want a place that I can know is a safe, guarded place that I can take my kids in the summer or throughout the year to have fun in the water. The second thing people asked were about the fee schedule relating to the previous question. They're asking, okay, is it just going to be a flat fee, daily fee, or is the city going to offer seasonal or annual passes? Is there going to be a fee different for residents, non-residents? And then the last issue, which a lot of people talked about, and a lot of people talked about in support of building a pool, was the fact that, as most people know, so there is swimmer's itch. Some people can contract swimmer's itch from the lakes, and that's one reason why they're very in support of a pool, because they don't feel comfortable swimming in the lakes in the city. Then we moved on to the municipality survey. This was sent out distributed via PARC, which stands for the Peer Assistance Resource Center, run by the Wisconsin City County Management Association. It was comprised of 11 different questions. We had 9 responses of communities that responded to it. These communities ranged in population to as small as the city of Hillsborough, which has a population of about a little over 1,400, to as large as the city of Oshkosh, which has a population a little over 66,000. All the communities that responded had either a pool or a splash pad. Only 3 communities had indoor pools, so most of them had outdoor pools. Of those communities that had indoor pools, I believe 2 of them also had an outdoor facility, either another outdoor pool or an outdoor splash pad. And only 3 facilities were built prior to the year 2000, so they're all newer facilities. Some of them, I think 2, I can't remember which ones right off the bat, 2 were actually built within the last 2 years.
What kind of percent response on that?
With that, I can't put a whole percentage because the way PARC goes, it goes out to all the members of the WCMA. So that could be anyone, city administrators, public works directors, anyone who's a member of the WCMA, which is most people in city administration throughout Wisconsin, received a notification in their email that it had been posted.
So this is really with only 9 answers, that doesn't give you a real good picture.
It doesn't give us a real good picture, but it does for what I was using it for, so with the questions, and I'll kind of go into it, is what we asked them is kind of, what do you offer? When was it built? How much did it cost you to build? How much does it cost you to maintain? And then what other challenges do you face? That way it just kind of gives us an informed, what is out there, what are communities doing? We don't necessarily need to say 50% of communities have this, 50% of communities have this, because a lot of it, as you'll see here, you have different things that communities are doing. A lot of it depends on the size of the community. Top left here, this is the city of Amery. It's their community pool. You can kind of see they've got some lap swim area, open swim area, this is a more shallow area with some water fountains, a slide here, a deeper slide here. This is the city of Antigo. Theirs is an indoor pool.
Antigo.
Antigo, sorry. I apologize.
Who said the
You just offended Northeast Wisconsin.
I apologize. Antigo. Bottom left is the city of Hillsborough. So this was our smallest community. As you can kind of see, more of a basic pool. It's not a great picture. I was able to pull kind of an off season, but they have it's a basic pool that can do lap swim. They do have a high dive and a low dive. They also do have a concession area and changing facilities. And then down here we have the city of Portage, which is another indoor pool that they actually did in correlation with their elementary school. It is in their elementary school. Again, a basic pool. They can do lap swim. They also have open swim options for that as well. All of these communities do offer things like exercise classes, open swim, lap swim, things like that. So I just kind of showed you the idea. Well, there is a large variety of options. So in the maintenance cost department, we asked them, okay, what is your average, what's that maintenance cost? The max maintenance cost, and this is on a per year basis, was about $250,000. I want to say that was the city of Oshkosh was the top one. But then again, that $250,000 was a bigger city with a very large pool. The smallest maintenance cost is about $23,000. And then average it out to about $127,000 a year. Big things that do affect that are age of the pool. As pools age, bigger items obviously have to be replaced. Other things that affect that is if the pool is indoor or outdoor. Indoor pools, you not only do you have the pool itself, you have the structure around it, you have big dehumidifying units that require a lot of maintenance as well. Other thing that you have to go into is not just the pool, is it has to be manned. There have to be lifeguards there. There have to be maintenance personnel that run the pool. If it's a big pool, a lot of times they have a pool manager. And so personnel costs up to $265,000. Again, those are for the very large water parks, all the way down to $30,000 for the smaller. But it is averaging $162 compared between them. And it just depends on the size of the pool, how large, how long you're open, how many lifeguards you have going out there at any given time, who's in charge of running the pool.
Are these totally municipal ones? Are any of them joint with school districts?
Like I said, like Portage was a joint with the school district. I think one other was a joint with the school district. Can't remember which one it is right off the top of my head. And in those cases, for example, I believe it was with Portage, the city built the pool, the school district pays lifeguards. So they have different ways that was funded in that area as well. So only one city did not have an admissions fee for their pool. Everyone that had a splash pad doesn't have an admissions fee for a splash pad. Splash pads tend to be open park areas that people can just walk in and play in, so there's really no way people can control for a fee in those, unless it's a situation where it's kind of part of a bigger recreational facility where you had to have a fee just to get into the facility in general. Only the city of Hillsborough charged more than $10 per visit. And they all had, by the way, offered rates of seasonal, daily, annual rates as well. Only 2 pools cost municipalities less than $100,000 to construct. That would be Hillsborough and Portage, but then again, Portage again was a combined with the school district. City of Hillsborough's pool was built almost 30 years ago, and for accounting for the cost, I did a little crunch some numbers for what they paid when it was built to today's dollar. It would have been somewhere in the range of $260,000 to $320,000 to build that pool. And then again, that was this more basic pool on the bottom left here. Okay. As I said, all municipalities had a fee schedule for daily, seasonal, and annual passes, as well as some even had distinguished between resident and non-resident. And then some of the challenges, we asked them, okay, what are some of the challenges that you have faced, things that we should be knowing about? The most 2 common one were staffing. I think a lot of organizations, be it a pool or any kind of business right now, they're having trouble getting manpower. I think that's one way some municipalities, they teamed with the school district to maybe get those students kind of some summer job or job throughout the year. The school district can also train them in CPR and things like that. The other one again was maintenance costs. That's just as a fact with any kind of facility, be it a regular park, a skate park, a tennis court, things like that. Over time, they will need to be upkept and fixed. And then also one thing that was pointed out that can kind of take in effect when you're considering maintenance costs is that with one community whose pool is very new, a lot of those things, they said a lot of the maintenance is covered under warranty for the first 5 years or so. So initially, if there's any maintenance that needs to be done, the maintenance costs are low for the first couple of years. So some considerations we have to consider when building a water recreational facility. First one is construction costs. It tends to be a large initial investment. Depending on what the city wanted to do or the community wanted to do, would be a basic kind of lap swim pool or a pool with different amenities, changes the cost. You really can't get into exactly what the exact cost would be until you kind of put a spec together of your size of the pool and what you want in it. But I estimated that to build a pool, the city would probably want to at least expect an initial cost of probably around the $500,000 mark to at least be kind of safe, depending on what they want to do.
David, is that indoor or outdoor?
That is mostly actually even an outdoor pool. I did actually.
Indoor would add a building onto that.
Yes, so,
assessment?
and in those costs too, you have to consider, even with an outdoor pool, you have to consider, you gotta have a place for people to change, use the bathroom, you probably wanna gate the facility, parking lot, people to park, so there's a lot of different things than just the cement in the ground with that as well. Some pools also have, they have a concession stand, things like that. Things to consider, ways you can fund that. There's a lot of different funding options that you're probably familiar with. As part of the survey, we asked communities, how did you fund your pool? Majority of the communities, it was just a regular capital expense. They either just did it in 1 year, or they spread it out over a couple different years. They said, okay, for the next 5 years, we're going to set aside $100,000, and the 5th year we'll build. Special assessment, which we talked about before. Grants, there are some grants out there that their communities have available to them. Bonding. And then there's also the other consideration you have to think about when you have construction costs is, okay, where are you going to put this pool or this facility? I think in Amery we're in a pretty good spot right now because we have a lot of land and different good locations that the community already owns. Things that would pop into my mind: Soldiers Field, Bobber Park, North Park, where we already have some tennis courts, a skate park, and the campground. We've got a large area of grass there, so there's plenty of places where the community could build and it wouldn't have initial cost of any land acquisition. Then again, like I talked about before, you have those maintenance costs. I would anticipate that if city that says of Amery, would probably go more on that smaller end of a pool. If you go smaller end of a pool, you're probably thinking $25,000 to $40,000 a year in maintenance. And then personnel, if it's an outdoor pool, you're only going to run it probably about 3 or 4 months out of the year. Lifeguards, 1 or 2 lifeguards on at any given time. You got to have someone who's going to manage it. If there's going to be any recreational activities, someone who runs those. So you're probably going to anticipate about $30,000 to $50,000 a year in that as well. And again, a lot of these numbers I'm doing just for an outdoor pool. As Fran said, indoor pools get more expensive. In the surveys, a lot of people mentioned, we want something like the center in New Richmond. Well, I actually reached out to the center's executive director and just kind of asked him, what would it be if you were to build your pool today? What do you believe it would be? And he said they did some additions to the pool. They're just opening a splash park this year outdoors. So just the pool indoors would probably cost $2.5 million today. The splash park, after we fence it, it's going to cost about $75,000.
That would be twice our budget.
So a lot, and that's the thing. As I said, and that's why a lot of those communities.
We could eliminate Chance's crew.
A lot of those communities have outdoor pools just for the fact that an indoor pool has a lot of those extra costs, like a building around it.
So the assessment on people's taxes would be
nothing that they would like.
5 times your.
They would burn my house down. They burn your house
That's why I
down.
asked who responded.
And then the other consideration the community has to make is, okay, we have all these costs, but then do those costs outweigh the benefits to the community? Do they outweigh the draw that a pool or a splash park brings to younger families coming, to potential employers coming who could say, hey, I know I could get people to come here and live here. There is amenities for that. Maybe that's even builders coming and say, hey, I'll build a house here because I know there's amenities and I can get what I need for the house to build it. So there's all those other benefits that have to be considered and weighing each other out. So moving forward, some of the recommendations I've got 3 of them. The first one is kind of more immediate, a little cheaper, is to run a swimmer's itch awareness campaign. As I said, in a lot of the surveys, people mention how they are unwilling to swim in the lakes because of swimmer's itch. Now, I looked into swimmer's itch, and unfortunately, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, the DNR, says pretty much there really, at this time, is no way to control for swimmer's itch in a lake. It's kind of a natural phenomenon that happens. There should only be, swimmer's itch is actually not a year-round thing. It's only about a couple weeks a year in which it's kind of a spawning season for swimmer's itch. But they list a variety of different ways you can control and protect yourself from it, including toweling off immediately as you come out of the water. Don't let yourself sun dry. Grab a towel, immediately just dry yourself off. Make sure when you're done swimming, you're taking a shower, you're getting all of the sand and the mud off of yourself. Some sunscreens and oils, if you apply those before you go in the water, actually repel swimmer's itch to keep from that as well. And then also just discouraging birds, waterfowl in those swimming areas, not feeding them, kind of trying to figure a way to control them from being in those areas. And then they even had this nice little sign that DNR created that you could copy or use, and it just informs people about swimmer's itch and how to control for it. This is something you could, run a campaign on, have it present at a swimming beach to let people know that there may be swimmer's itch in the area, but it's still safe to swim here. We still encourage you to swim here. Here's other ways to control it to ensure you don't contract swimmer's itch. The second one would be, again, maybe a little more immediate, not as cost heavy, would be to clean up and improve the beaches. Get in there, really make those beaches look nice. Improving, kind of again running that campaign of encouraging people to go to those beaches. Maybe investing in some more beach recreation options, putting in some extra beach volleyball courts. When people go to a beach, they like to. Volleyball is a popular thing, especially for older people who are going to a beach. Having things like a floating dock. We already have one. I think that's on the South Twin. Adding more things like that for people to climb on. One other thing that the DNR suggests is also when you're swimming, to swim a little bit away from the shore. So that was something like a swimming dock would help in that aspect as well. If it's around certain times of the year, maybe on weekends, put out, there's different inflatables things, there's permanent things that can go in the water, things that can go in the water, be taken out at the end of the day. There's a variety of different options out there that also aren't very cost heavy. And then the final one is a long-term plan. Kind of makes an assumption that eventually some type of pool or splash pad is going to need to be brought to Amery to encourage people to come to Amery, especially those young families. And for that, I suggest kind of developing a 3 to 5 year plan to construct a pool or splash pad, starting with what do we want, where do we want it, putting together specs, which results in you can put out some bids, getting an idea of what would at the end of the day, to build this structure, how much would it cost, putting together a committee, figuring out ways to fundraise, so the city doesn't have to fund all of it. I actually spoke with the CEO of the medical center, Deb, and she mentioned to me that she knows an interested party in something like this would be the Health and Wellness Fund, interested in kind of participating in that. Other community organizations, businesses who might be interested in supporting the construction of a pool. Again, we have grants. There's grant options out there for the initial construction. There's also grant options out there for once the pool is built. One is it's a swimmer's grant that encourages the swimming lessons, so it can fund. I think it's up to $10,000 or $15,000 a year if you are encouraging swimming lessons and you provide swimming lessons at your facilities. So looking into how can we short-term and long-term construct a pool or splash pad.
Did you look into either some of these people proposing hotels or the school district, if this was something that you'd want to be involved in?
I did reach out to the school district. They expressed interest in this. This is something they're interested in supporting. Before, when I originally did it, Jim Cookta wanted to go bring this before the school board. I said, hold on a minute, we aren't there yet. But it is something that he believes that the school district would have interest in kind of discussing and figuring out a way that both the school district and the city, maybe even the medical center. I was talking to Deb, she mentioned how they do have a rehab pool in the exercise center here in downtown, but it is pretty much, it really is a glorified spa hot tub that you put in your backyard. So, you know, having something again that improves, the medical center, the health and wellness fund, they're all for anything that improves the health and well-being of the community, and they see a pool as definitely as one of those options. So any other questions at this time?
I think Chris's comment about the school is a good comment. The majority of the younger kid population is outside of the city limits. It's in the towns, and it would be nice to see the school step up and step forward. But we also, I mean, there's a very good likelihood, if we do have a new hotel or motel, that there may be a pool involved in that project as well.
Yes.
So,
And one thing I actually did ask in the survey, I didn't put it in here because there wasn't a whole, people didn't go into expounding about it too much. I asked them, is there any other entity in your community that offers open swim hours? There were, I think, 2 entities that said a pool. One city, it was a bigger city, mentioned the YMCA having something like that, and then one organization, actually, one municipality actually mentioned that they built a pool with the school district or someone that built a smaller pool, and then the medical center went and built a bigger pool, and everyone goes to the medical center. Yes, options. So, and then one thing I just want to put out there at this time with this presentation, as you see, you haven't received the full study document. I am still working on that. I apologize for not having that ready tonight. We've had a lot of different things going on. I was pushing to try to get it ready for this evening, and then I kind of realized for what the Community Foundation has graciously put in financially into this project and what this community deserves, this is something that's been of great interest. I want to make sure that this document is as informative as possible. So the goal is at this point it should be probably first thing Monday morning, the document will be posted onto the city's website.
Good.
Nice work.
Thank you.
Very
A lot
nice
of
work,
work,
David,
Kim.
thank you.
Did you happen to contact Barron in the course of your study? And then a follow-up to that is, have any of these pools, are any of them operating net in black, or are all of them in the red, or a mix, or?
First, did I contact Barron? I did not actually hear from Barron. I also did try to contact, there was a few other entities I tried to contact. Unity, I didn't hear back from anyone at Unity. I know they also have a pool that's in Balsam Lake. That's the school district's pool that they kind of use as the community pool. Didn't hear from them. And for most of these pools, some of them did actually come out and straight out say that actually the user fees do outdo the costs. I think really what it comes down to is your cost, and then I think some of the cities that said the user fee outdid it were the bigger cities, like the city of Oshkosh, that have a population of 66,000 people. So I think that's an extra part of it moving forward, is when you figure out what's going to cost to actually build a pool, what the actual number is going to be, then you can kind of figure out, okay, what do we need to charge to make this break even? Maybe even make a little money, but generally you just want to break even. And then if we can't break even, what is the city's portion going to have to be outside of what we get from revenue from the facility?
It'd be interesting to see what Barron has for operation and stuff.
They actually have 2 pools, from what I understand. There's the outdoor
municipal
pool that the city owns, and then the Barron Community Center has an indoor pool, and that whole center was funded by the Jerome family.
And another one you might want to just check, I was recently up in the village of Grantsburg, and they have an older pool. The problem is, though, because it's older pool, more maintenance, they don't have money for it. The water was green, and I asked, and it's totally healthy, it's checked all the time, but it was a Saturday, 80-plus degrees, and multiple times we drove by there, and there was nobody there. So, I mean, that's the thing, you know, at first it costs nice warranties, but then you have to plan, because they've had that one for a long time, and they know things have to be done, and there's not money and funds to do it.
Exactly.
This is a community our size, something to compare.
And then that's one thing I like with, you know, we did have, and in the full document, that'll be broken down, all the communities that responded and how they responded. And as I said, we had, you know, community of 1,466,000, and there was actually, I think, 4 communities that were in our range, between, you know, 1,400 to up to 4,000. So who I would say are comparable in the population way.
I mean, if this was something that was a plan, a community our size needs not just a city involvement, needs multiple partners, because the city this size couldn't foot the bill and all the, you know.
Yeah.
But
Through your research with these other communities, are any of these operations being run by a outside district or outside entity other than the city itself?
The one municipality.
I don't think district is the right term.
Yeah, another entity.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I cannot remember which entity it was, where they mentioned that they cover the maintenance of the facility, but the school district runs the operations. So they provide the lifeguards, they provide the training for the lifeguards, and kind of the scheduling in that aspect, which is another thing kind of put in there. You have to, in that personnel costs, you know, if it's an indoor everyday facility, you got to kind of have someone who runs it. If it's a outdoor facility, you still kind of have to have a facility manager, but then again, that person's only, you know, 3 months a year. So. And then I think that's definitely another thing to look into, especially when, you know, if this is something that the city wants to look into long term, and seriously sitting down with organizations like the medical center and the school district and saying what ways can we work together to provide all this facility, and you know, is it the medical center providing or doing the exercise classes, is the school district providing the lifeguards and the training for the lifeguards and things like that. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Very good. Any more questions from the press? Do you want to come up here so that people on TV can hear you and see you?
My first question was the boat launch issue. You mentioned something about the DNR grant funding. What was the snag with that, or what happened that funding could be a question, or?
Well, the DNR is going to meet this month.
It's actually it's called the Wisconsin Waterways, is who provides the grant funding. They're a separate entity from the DNR. They meet 4 times a year, and that's the agency we've applied for the grant for. The grant is a 50-50 grant. The project costs, you're eligible up to get 50% as a grant, and then the city would pay the other 50%. And then included in our 50% would be in-kind or in-like donations of the value of what the city crew can do on the project and what the city can provide in that way. Occasionally, I should say the grant is a competitive process. You have to compete against other communities for the same pot of money. Occasionally they'll ask a community, will you take less than 50% of the grant money? And their meeting is next Tuesday in Wausau, and I'll be attending that along with a representative of the Amery Lakes District and the city's technical consultant from Cooper Engineering. But going into that, I needed some direction from the committee about what if they do propose to fund us less than 50%? What if that issue comes up? What am I authorized on behalf of the city? Certainly, we don't want to offer up anything. We don't want to offer to give anything up. They have sufficient funding, it looks like, to fund all of the projects at 50% that have applied, but that is up to their discretion. And the response from the committee was that I would have a 5% wiggle room. So if they offer us 45% or less than 50, I could go to 45%. Anything other than that, and even when the city receives the grant, they still have to evaluate the cost of the project and moving forward on it.
Okay. So it didn't have to do with requirements not being met or something like that?
Oh, no, nothing
Okay.
like that. Nope,
All right.
nothing like that.
The second part of that question was you said that Ron Anderson was somehow not happy that he wasn't involved. What was his stake in that whole situation?
Well, his stake is the same as a lot of us that live on this lake out here. Ron, as well as myself, are very concerned that it'll possibly increase the lake traffic, which is, we feel it's almost overused as it is right now. And Ron is a taxpayer as well as a lot of us others out there, and we pay, our property taxes are quite substantial on the lake. And he was not available when this was originally voted on by the city.
There's been several public hearings and opportunities for input for the public.
Right, right.
Unfortunately, it wasn't.
And he informed us he is opposed to that boat landing. He thought that would be a detriment to the
I
to the
see.
lake,
Okay.
to the quality of the lake and the water and everything else.
Okay, speaking of Ron, I have a question. I don't know if you can answer this, Eric. With the new wetland delineation, it looks to me like roughly half of Anderson's lot is now deemed swamp. So do you know roughly how much acreage that is? And does that leave him with more or less room than he originally had on the Apple River flowage?
I don't know how much acreage he has on the Apple River flowage, but I know that there's approximately 3 acres of developable property that's not wetland, like in the center of his.
Sure, okay.
That's definitely more than what he had in the river.
More than what he had on there, okay.
Definitely more.
Okay, that was the only
Yeah, a
other
lot more.
questions I have. Thank you.
Okay. I do not believe there's any reason to go into closed session on anything.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
No,
Okay, wait a minute.
We have another agenda item, and that would be, and this is an item that was discussed in our finance committee.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And I think most of the council may have been present, so I guess we'll take a poll if you want to go into a closed session to discuss the matter, but
No, I thought it was.
in my opinion is, I'd like the public to be well aware of, as it relates to our former administrator, part of our settlement with our administrator was to pay health insurance through the end of the year. He has now secured other employment over in the Upper Peninsula, and he has the opportunity to have health insurance coverage with that community. And in connection with that, he's requesting that, he's asking us to buy out a portion of that health insurance. And I guess Fran can explain it, but I think we would have a savings of about $4,000 over paying the insurance the rest of the year. Our committee would rather save $4,000 than spite our nose to, I guess if you want to say it that way. So Fran, could you explain it a little bit more in detail?
Sure. I think I have a copy of it here.
I guess our recommendations, after it's explained, would be that the council
There's a
approve buying him out.
a liability to provide, as part of his separation agreement, that the city provide in health insurance for him for the term of that agreement. He's gotten a job somewhere else that also offers health insurance, and they also offer a health insurance buyout. He approached the city and proposed that the city buy out the insurance liability of his separation agreement. The liability that remains to the city is over $10,000. And then of that liability that would remain, it would reduce the city's dollar amount of that liability by about over $4,000. And then the rest would be his buyout portion. I don't think I have the numbers right on me. I thought they were in the
They're in the
packet, though.
packet.
They are in the
Are
packet.
they?
Yeah.
Well, then I didn't page
There's like a
far
60-40% split.
Yeah, it's a 60, oh, here we are. Yeah, it's a 60-40% split. Okay, the total liability is $10,477.13. It's a 60-40 split, so the savings to the city would be $4,190.85. And then the buyout to Darcy Long would be $6,286.28. And then also, I just want to mention that NOAA Insurance Agency, who's the city's insurance broker, and specifically Jackie Marlette, who is our broker on this, that Jackie developed the numbers and the chart for this going forward, that this information came directly from her about how much the dollar amounts are.
I recommend that we accept that buyout at the 40% rate.
And I'll second his motion, the counselor.
Motion made and seconded to accept the buyout. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Approved. Now should we adjourn? Or is there anything else that needs to come before us? I'm sorry, it's been a long day. That's my excuse.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
All right.